Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into a question that is definitely controversial, but honestly, it's absolutely crucial to talk about. We're looking at a fascinating analysis of modern society, specifically examining how our society applies justice when it comes to gender. It's a complex, debate-sparking topic, and our goal today is to neutrally unpack the author's perspective. Let's get right into it.
The source material kicks things off with this direct quote. Are we applying justice equally to everyone? It's a really heavy question, right? And the author uses it as the anchor for their entire argument. They aren't out to tear down the justice system, but rather they're inviting us to take a hard, analytical look at whether the ideals of justice actually match the everyday reality for different people in our society.
Section 1. Acknowledging historical context.
Before anything else, we have to make one thing completely clear. The author fully acknowledges that women were historically oppressed and denied many rights. It's an absolute reality. The text stresses that laws protecting women were created for incredibly valid reasons, and that genuine victims absolutely deserve protection, support, and justice. This isn't about rolling back the clock at all. It's about establishing exactly why these protective frameworks exist before we analyze how they're operating today.
Section 2. Is the system fair? So, with that foundation laid, the author pivots from historical context to modern practicalities by asking, is the current system always fair in practice? You see, the text suggests that just because a system was built with very valid, protective intentions, that doesn't automatically mean it functions flawlessly in reality. The source invites us to critically examine that gap between the theory of justice and its actual daily execution.
Section 3. Cruelty knows no gender.
This whole question is actually really personal for the author. To help us understand their perspective, they share a specific anecdote about being bullied and humiliated by groups of girls. But the really critical point they make isn't just about the bullying itself, it's about the aftermath. When the author tried to talk about those experiences, they often felt dismissed or simply not taken seriously by others. And that feeling of having their suffering minimized really sparked this broader investigation.
And that experience led the author to this core realization. Bullying, abuse, and cruelty are human problems. They aren't limited to just one gender. By framing it this way, the source argues that our justice and social systems need to recognize and address abuse regardless of who the perpetrator is, rather than relying on any preconceived notions about gender.
Section 4. Accusations and public opinion.
Now, the author points out some pretty stark observations about how public accusations are handled differently. When women are accused of serious or violent crimes, the text notes they often receive sympathy, or they're described as victims of circumstance. But on the flip side, when a man is accused of a crime, the public frequently assumes he's guilty immediately, long before a court ever reaches a verdict. The source highlights that men in this situation often lose their reputation, struggle to get bail, and face massive social punishment before the legal process is even complete.
Section 5. Who gets second chances? Similarly, think about how society treats mistakes. The author claims that when boys make comparatively smaller mistakes, like offensive comments or immature behavior, they are sometimes publicly shamed and treated as if they are totally beyond redemption. Yet when women make mistakes, society frequently focuses on concepts like rehabilitation, understanding, and offering second chances. It's a huge inconsistency in how empathy is distributed.
Which raises an incredibly important question. The author asks, why do we often find it easier to believe that women can change while men are more readily viewed as dangerous or guilty by default? It really forces you to pause and reflect on our hidden biases, right? The author is suggesting that society has basically adopted these default settings without fully questioning them. And that leads directly into this complex balancing act. Can we protect genuine victims without abandoning the principles of due process, equal treatment, and the presumption of innocence? Remember, the source completely reaffirms that protecting genuine victims is vital, but the challenge is, how do we do that safely, without sacrificing fundamental legal principles for the accused? How do we hold those two vital truths at the exact same time?
Section 6. Rebalancing gender and justice.
The author pulls all of this together with a clear blueprint. A truly just society must neither ignore violence against women nor dismiss the suffering of men. It's a call for a highly balanced approach. Acknowledging the pain of one group absolutely does not require invalidating the pain of another. True fairness means validating human suffering equally across the board.
Ultimately, the author argues that true justice has to be based on three foundational pillars: evidence, accountability, and fairness, not on gender. By focusing strictly on hard evidence and holding people fairly accountable, we can build a system that actually serves everyone equally.
We've covered a lot of complex ground today unpacking this source. So I want to leave you with the author's final, provocative prompt. Has the conversation about gender and justice become unbalanced, or is there another perspective we should consider? What do you think? Take a moment to reflect on what we've explored today and where you stand. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those big questions.